Okay, now what I've done here for the next 5 slides is I've taken the student essay, the original student essay that's found on beginning on page 114 in your textbook, and I've lined it up parallel to the revised corresponding paragraphs in the revised version on page 116. And I've taken basically I've translated what the book has into this presentation right here. So what you're going to see on the left is the original draft. This is the original introduction. College students in the United States easily admit to a fear of failure, but rarely confess to a fear of success. That's an interesting. Okay. Uh, Most students would be embarrassed to admit that the thought of success scares them. It is important to recognize the reasons students fear success. Okay, that's a little bit weak. It's kind of short. Doesn't really grab the reader's attention. The writer goes back, looks over it, and identifies some things. Right? Can I start with a dramatic story to get the readers hooked? Okay, that's not a bad idea, and that's what she does in the revision. Then the next question she asks is, or what she says she needs to do is to explain why it's important to recognize the reasons that students fear success. Okay, and then finally, she asks the question, should I list the points I will cover in my paper here? In other words, an essay map. These are all good questions. Notice they're not too arcane or obscure. They're just simply good questions that you should ask yourself when you're looking over a first draft and saying, how can I better connect with the reader? So in the revised introduction, you see, when my friend Victoria was a college sophomore, she won a contest put on by a local lady, and her logo was posted on its website. But when the art professor told the class, her stomach hurt and she felt panicky. Okay, that's an interesting story. Okay, college students in the United States easily admit to a fear of failure, but rarely confess to a fear of success. Now that hasn't changed, but she's added the story to articulate or to better illustrate what the more abstract statement that I've just read communicates. After all, winning is everything. Most students would be embarrassed to say that the thought of wealth, responsibility, and um, face, I think I've got a typo there. Let me continue because I've already said so much. Makes them want to hide under the bed. Recognizing the reasons the students fear success is the first step to solving this huge problem that can lead to terrible regrets in life. And then notice we have a much better thesis statement. The main reasons that people avoid success, that's what she's dealing with here. Why do people avoid success? Well, here are the 3 reasons. This, by the way, is a cause-effect essay. You'll be writing one of these. They don't think they deserve it. They don't know whether or not they can follow through, and they worry about how success will change them. So we have 3 points that are being made, 3 reasons given. We know that now each one is going to be developed in one of the body paragraphs. Okay, so here's the first body paragraph. Some people who fear success believe they are not good enough. Okay, that's the reason number 1 that was given in the essay map. They let their negative views of their own value keep them from trying their best. They expect to fail, so they don't even try to succeed. This lack of self-esteem can come from a bad life event. My friend Olivia was getting ready to start college when a fire put her father in the hospital. Olivia decided not to go to college. This is very weak. Okay, the topic sentence, it's okay. Is she over-explaining, she asks, right? There are negative views. Is she explaining too much? Maybe she is. And then she points out in her comment here, example doesn't say why the fire made her give up college. And yes, it's very strange. Why would a father getting burned and going to the hospital cause a person not to go to college? It seems ridiculous. So this is a bad example. Now, one of the problems here is that the writer in her head understands the incident. She knows why, but she's not providing the reader with the necessary information so that the reader can internalize this example and apply it to what the writer says in the topic sentence. So notice what she does now. The first main reason for fear of success is feeling like one doesn't deserve it. That is a much better, I say thesis, this topic sentence. It's a much improved topic sentence with a transition. The first main reason, right? The summer before my friend Olivia was going to start college, a skillet of grease she was heating on the stove caught fire. Her father put it out, was burned on his chest and arms, and was rushed to the hospital. Olivia blamed herself for the accident and decided not to go to college. She believed that she was an awful, careless, inferior person who didn't deserve to pursue her own goals. Notice how the author here now gives us the full story and why this would cause Olivia not to go to college. The guilt she felt, right? She didn't feel she was good enough to go to college. And she uses very strong adjectives to explain how Olivia felt, because you have to communicate the event, the burning of the father, with the reaction that Olivia had if this is going to be a complete and effective illustration. So it is. Now in the second body paragraph, we can see that the writer has only one real comment here. But you can see it in the box there, need to connect this example to topic sentence. That's kind of what was missing with the in the previous paragraph as well. And again, I can't stress this enough. Your examples exist to support the idea expressed in a topic sentence, and so you've got to make sure that the example connects. So he writes here, or she writes here, people can fear success because they were afraid they won't be able to live up to it. Again, this needs to be revised, and we will see the revision in a moment. When my mother was in preschool, her teachers decided to put her into a group with older kids, but she didn't know how to tie her shoes yet. When all the kids took off their sneakers, she did also, but then felt really dumb when it was time to tie them back up, and she had to ask the teacher for help. Well, I don't understand how that example relates to not being able to live up to success. So let's see what the writer does with this example, also with what the writer does with the topic sentence. The second main reason, okay, now we have a transition, so we're now on number 2. The second main reason that people fear success is that they are afraid they won't be able to keep on succeeding. When my mother was in preschool, her teachers moved her into a new group with older kids. At first, she felt excited and proud. Unfortunately, notice the transitional expression here, she didn't know how to tie her shoes yet. When the older kids happily kicked off their sneakers for circle time, she did the same thing. Then she felt humiliated when she had to ask the teacher for help trying to tie them again. In contrast, things are different now. My mother learned how to tie her sneakers, of course, and now she is a respected manager at a major scientific laboratory. Well, now, this at least helps to illustrate a little bit more. I'm still not sure if the full example completely illustrates the idea the writer is trying to get across, but at least the writer provides more detail. Okay, here's the final body paragraph. We'll see the same kind of revision going on. People can fear success because of change. Like some people who are overweight have trouble sticking to a diet. That's a fragment there. That's not going to work. They have trouble imagining a new, slimmer self. And then the writer, of course, says, should I tell where I got the dieting thing? And the answer would be probably yes. Another example is that many people who don't succeed are anxious about making people feel less than. I don't know what that means. That's bad writing there. When I worked at a fast food restaurant last summer, one of my friends from college was hired after me, and I was asked to train her. I had trouble giving her directions because I figured that she would think I was acting like I was better than she was. Weak and no real no real conclusion to this paragraph here. This needs a lot of work, and so we see here kind of wordy and confusing in the section beginning with because, and the writer also says maybe add some actual directions I gave my friend. Yes, actual directions would be great because they're specific. I can visualize them. So, excuse me. Here's the revision. The final and most important reason. Notice now we know that we're dealing with order of emphasis. The most important reason has come last. The final and most important reason that people fear success is that they think they will change for the worse. For example, and again, a transitional expression to introduce the example. Some people who are overweight have trouble sticking to a diet, according to Psychology Today. They struggle with the idea of becoming a skinnier self because it is different. Probably should have written thinner self. They probably wonder what a thinner me would be like. They probably wonder what would a thinner me be like? What would I wear? How would people treat me? In addition, many people are terrified that success might turn them into a person they don't want to be. When I worked at a fast food restaurant last summer, a friend from college was hired after me, and I was asked to train her. I had trouble giving her directions about how she swept the floor or grilled burgers because I didn't want to sound like I was overly controlling or thought I was better than she was. After that, I believed success would turn me into the enemy. Okay, that really is very nice. Now we can understand why the fear of success in this circumstance, we can understand the fear of success in this particular circumstance. It's much better. There is a conclusion. The topic sentence has been revised. We get, as it says here, the factual example. The source is given, Psychology Today. Some essays, some professors will allow you to use sources without doing MLA citation. I don't. But if but she would be able to provide the proper documentation if it was required. And then, of course, the details in the example are much more specific and therefore more illustrative. And finally, we come to the conclusion. Notice the original draft. The conclusion is not very good. It's weak and short. So success can be frightening because it makes us think about being undeserving, not meeting challenges, and that success will change us. Now then, the comment that the writer makes is, I like that I repeated my main points, but it still needs work. What do my readers want to remember or do after reading my essay? This is a very good question. This is a very good strategy for conclusions. So here's what she does. Success can stand for something to be feared. We shiver at the thought of not deserving it, making mistakes, and most of all, that it will change us into someone we don't know anymore. If one keeps in mind the three main reasons why people are afraid to succeed, one's light can start to shine, and that could show other people how they can shine too. That's a nice conclusion. Basically, there's something to take away from here. If you keep this in mind, this is going to be the result of that. Okay, so this is a good conclusion. Still pretty short, but a good conclusion nevertheless. Okay, I'm not going to really spend a lot of time on this. The book does, on pages 125 through 128, offer suggestions on how to overcome the inability to write. And if you are in that situation, it's called writer's block. Then I would suggest that you look at the suggestions on those pages and try one or two of them to see if you can unblock yourself. Writer's block happens to everybody. It certainly happened to me before. It's aggravating. It's very frustrating, but it can be dealt with. Okay, and so we come to the end of this presentation on drafting and revising. Here are the 7 points to remember. Revision is an activity that occurs at all stages of the writing process. You should always be in a mode of change. All good writers revise and polish their prose, bar none. Revision is merely editing or last-minute proofreading. It involves important decisions about the essay's ideas, organization, and development. It is a wholesale re-looking at, a revision of the essay. To revise effectively, novice writers might review their drafts in stages to avoid the frustration that comes with trying to fix everything at once. And that's what we covered, the 6 stages of revision. We just looked at that a little while ago. Critical thinking skills, of course, are vitally important to all good readers and writers. So always be thinking with a critical mind. How can I make this better? How can this work? Is this supporting the idea that I have introduced in a thesis or a topic sentence? And then don't worry about the collaborative activities. Maybe at some point in the semester we might do some collaboration, but you in many respects have already engaged in collaborative activity when you posted your paragraphs to the forum, because you were collaborating on the writing process together. And then finally, most writers experience writer's block at some time, but live through it to write again. So the trick is to get yourself out of the quagmire of not knowing what to write or not being inspired, and again make reference to those pages I mentioned in slide 27 to get some tips about how to overcome writer's block if you are having trouble. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and if not, I hope you at least have learned something from it. All right, I'll be talking to you next week.